Sprayed that one off to the right. Sandlands put a hand up. It's played on. Crozier snap round the body as he bent it back. Crozier, he loves it. Fremantle have got the lead back.
Hello and welcome, Monkey.
Juddy, how are you?
Mate, much better this week, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, definitely. A lot to get through this week on the show because we've got a big game to get through. We've got fantasy, we've got a medical question this week, and then we've got the Jared Ruffhead Club.
Yeah, don't we ever? Just before we start, so I hate to call you out early on in the piece, but I remember at the end of last episode you were saying you'll definitely beat the game. How was the game, Ben?
Unfortunately, I skipped the game, and even worse, I went to a friend's house who doesn't even have a TV, but thanks for being a paying Telstra customer, and get to watch the game live, unmetered unmetered data, obviously the best kind of data. So yeah, watching it on the small screen, it wasn't great, but it was good. Watch the replay. Very excited to watch the replay.
Yeah, well, you remind me of a reverse Tronic. So he doesn't have a membership and goes to all the games. You have a membership and you avoid going to games. So
yeah, hey, shout out for me not offering my ticket to Ducky. There was a spare one.
And just not going. I watched the whole game on TV, being in Noosa at the time, but I had a bus trip from Gladstone to Rocky last night, and it was pretty boring, and I just decided to watch the whole fourth quarter again, and it was awesome. Anyway, we could talk about that all day. Should we jump into some general things about the game? So take it away.
Yeah, well, big things for me, probably that last quarter stands out, the last quarter and the start. And I brought it up last week, talking about the first 5 minutes was really going to set the tone, and you were probably going to know within that 5 minutes. And I think we kicked 4 unanswered to start things off. And probably what was really important was when we had the momentum early on, we really made them pay, and we were kicking straight. And I think that really set the tone for the rest of the match.
Yeah, how much of a difference does it make when you have your 5 or 10 minutes of momentum and you actually score? And so when the other team gets it back, you're 4 goals up, you're not 4 points up. I find that's been our curse for a long time, and it actually makes a big difference. So we've had the momentum like that before in games and been still 4 goals down at quarter time. So it was really positive. I thought our ball use, even though we were still sloppy, because we had the intensity around the ball, we could still surge it forward and make it look good. Even though if you watch our highlights, there's some sloppiness in how we're handling the ball. But it was smarter in that we weren't just bombing high to no one. We were trying to kick short. They were just dropping the mark anyway, but sort of figure out a way to get it going. So I thought that was a really, really good change from the last 2 weeks. What do you reckon? Do you think it was like a time warp back to 2015? Like, that's how we played.
Yeah, well, our ball was we did butcher the ball a little. Well, not butcher it, but our skills were down, but the effort was just right up there.
Yeah.
And I think there was that play, which was a good highlight, where somehow Sheridan landed the ball in between 4 people, one of them being the biggest man in the world. He was just getting watered and thrown fertiliser on in the forward line, and Sheridan drops the mark, somehow misses it. But everyone was there. Numbers were around the footy, and people were backing us in, backing Sheridan in. The ball was going to get in there, and Walters pops up. Finally, didn't go for mark of the year, stayed down, and
yeah, good point.
Goal. So, I think we had the polish at the right time.
Yeah,
but leaves room for improvement. But it was like we turned back the clock. It does beg the question: where were you in the first 2 rounds? But still, such a big effort for everything that was said in the week leading up. It was pumped up in the media, and I think it was a bit dramatic, but just such a good response from really what is quite a young team.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good change to see the effort, intensity there. To be honest, it got to the point in the third quarter when they got ahead and they were 16 points up or whatever it was. And I was like, look, I'm almost not disappointed if we lose this by 20 points. You know, that thought creeps into your head. And I would have forgiven Freo players who being like, look, we played pretty well and just rolling over. But like, to their credit, I was the one thinking that, and they were the ones going, "Nah, we're going to win this." And guys like Weller are just putting in this effort after effort, moving the ball. You got Walters bobbing up. You got Hamling playing his best game, or in 3 games, but he showed why he was worth. I think people are now going, "Nah, Hamling, great pickup." So I don't know, there's a lot to like about that beyond just having a win, because the win, we're not going to make finals. Let's be honest, probably not, but the win is less relevant than the signs that were shown by a young team.
Yeah, that last quarter, especially, I loved Crozier and McCarthy. McCarthy didn't have the greatest last quarter. He dropped a few marks.
Oh, didn't he drop like 10?
He dropped a lot of marks, but he didn't go into his shell. He didn't back down, and he kept presenting. Unfortunately, but that's just a split-second thing that hopefully he'll quickly erase. But the fact that no one from that Dockers team went back, took a step back. At one point, we were leading the inside 50s 14-4. Like, we were just completely dominating them, and just so good to see players to come back from out. I didn't know we had such a bad comeback record from three-quarter time.
That was under Ross Lyon, I found out since. So,
was it?
Yeah, so I was like, I'm sure we've come back from more than like 7 points down or whatever it was. Under Ross Lyon, we've never come back in the fourth quarter, really.
Specifically looking at players, who do you think would be, maybe not your best, but who stood out for you?
So I think we'll talk about the recruits separately, the 4 recruits, but Weller, for me, again, I'm becoming a really big fan of this guy because I find that his effort is so honest. Like, he's just such an honest player, the way he puts pressure on and the way he sort of executes different things. He can really take the game on. He's got pace, he's got flair, kicked that goal from 55. So he was a really, really big positive for me. And the other one was old Mundy. Really showed that he's still got a little bit to offer, particularly, last quarter, game on the line, that intercept mark goal. I really got pretty loud. I was staying in a complex in Noosa. Me and my old man and mum were watching it, and Beck was there too. And as he kicked that goal, I screamed, and we get a text from my sister, who was like 2 floors up, going, "Oh, is everything okay down there?" Because I was that loud.
First time you've been told to be quiet?
Yeah. I was probably whispering using my inside voice.
Yeah, look, I really, unfortunately for Subban, he might not be let back in after what Crozier did on Saturday night. I thought he really stood up, and when he got the ball, he just had intent when he got it. The way he got in the last quarter there, he picked up the ball on the boundary line on his wrong preferred side and just did a big U-turn and just he wasn't just going to go a cheap kick back. He was just ready to run, carry, get the ball inside. I really like Crozier, and he kicked 2 massive goals.
Yeah. He was a man possessed in the fourth quarter amongst other people, but particularly him. I thought definitely you could just see the effort, and his intensity was really rose. So he had something to prove, and he proved it. So he's not going anywhere. Weller's not going anywhere. Anyone else in the fourth quarter? Got Sun.
Yeah, Walters. I think he's listening. I think he's been listening to...
He heard us.
He's definitely heard us. No, and I also enjoyed the way when he slotted those goals, it wasn't over-celebrated. It just seemed so calculated, and he seems to be progressing into a senior player where, he knows that it's going to be a long journey, but he just kick the goal, get on with it.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, as they say. Another guy that definitely listened to Dork Talk, because we gave him a roasting, is old MJ, Jono, old kebab shops, mate. He really turned back the clock as well, and that was Johnson of 2013, or whenever he got All-Australian. He was on, and he was clean, and he was quick. He didn't look slow this week. And I think Lyon made a good point. He said, when your team's on and you're putting pressure on, everyone suddenly looks good. Like, nothing changes. You just look better when the team's pressuring the other team. But didn't he turn back the clock?
Yeah, and good to see. Loved him getting thrown into the ruck as well in that fourth quarter when it was on. He got thrown in the guts. He even did that cheeky little outside of the boot banana kick.
Yeah, hit the target.
Hit the target. But just the confidence that it's pretty unreal to see a turnaround like that, and players just come back and it's like, where has this been? Like, no one was expecting it, which is great. Probably leads to a good question, which is the continuity. Do you think it's going to be a bit up and down from here, or do you think that this kind of football and this kind of, it's going to be maintained?
Well, the bullish Dockers supporter in me thinks, of course, we're going to win the flag. But then the realist in me goes, hang on, haven't you been a Dockers supporter for, 20 years or whatever it is? And they've always been up and down. So, yeah, of course, we won't expect that every week. And I think it's great that they did that. But I think the signs were so positive that if they can take confidence out of that, there's no reason why they can't perform to a similar level. And the improvement that they could make in little things like skill execution could make that even better. So the effort was the number one thing that was lacking, and that's what they corrected. And suddenly we won a game against a good side. So the effort was the major change.
I hope we can turn it on like that in a game for hopefully, maybe put together 2 quarters, 3 quarters. We're not going to get it right every week, but it'd be great to see that kind of football come out. It's going to make it a lot more enjoyable to watch, and we're probably going to be in a lot more games if we bring that kind of football out.
Definitely.
All right, so we've taken a look at our best players, and we've kept a keen focus on our recruits throughout the year. How do you reckon they performed in that win?
So I will start with my old mate Joel Hamlet. He really showed, and I think he's proved. I don't reckon there'll be any doubters anymore that he was the correct call, and he'll be really, really good for us. So he's a funny sort of a player. Like, it's like he needs to be challenged really hard, and he'll perform. So when he was against Buddy in the grand final, that sort of thing. But I thought he was outstanding both sides of the ball, so defensively and offensively. Kirsten showed that. As we were saying before, he is the sort of player, or could be the sort of player that we wanted Chris Mayne to be for so many years, as in can mark, can offer a target, and can kick goals. And if he can start to kick 2 to 3 goals a game, or or set up, those sort of goals, or be involved, he'll be handy. And he's that's why we traded for him. What did you think of McCarthy? We've already mentioned him a little bit.
I've already mentioned him, and I'll keep getting. We'll always look at him. It's
hard not to look at him with that haircut.
He is a very gross-looking footballer, and it gets back to the point we've made throughout this season: is that you got to be bald-headed to be liked. You can't have a ponytail to be liked. But he's going to come along great. He played really well. He just needs to get a bit more polish. He's obviously had a year off football, been smoking some darts with Hogan, having a few too many festivals.
Yeah, smoking something with Hogan. I don't know.
But he is coming along nicely, and like I said before, I love the way that he dropped those marks, but he didn't go anywhere. He was still leading up, presenting, getting the ball, and he was hungry. He wanted to be out there, so pretty happy with McCarthy.
Yeah, interesting. He could have had 10 marks or 15 marks or something. Like, he could have torn that game open had he held a few of those marks. Super
athletic, he was obviously, he's obviously a great footballer, and I think it'll come.
Yeah, WWE Raw is what we'll call him. And then I think what we'll do is we'll let our good friend Noobs tell us what he thinks about the Hill brothers and Brad Hill in particular. But we'll segue over to our first guest on this show, and first of many, may I say. We may even get some cross-pod talk going soon. We may even become a real podcast soon rather than a YouTube video. Who knows where we'll go with this. Now, Noobs, what can you tell me about your thoughts on the weekend and any players in particular?
Well, look, I was obviously in Hong Kong, so...
Obviously.
I didn't see the game. Yeah, but what I can tell you is that people over there were very excited about it.
Dockers have a big following in Hong Kong, I've heard.
A big following. I left Happy Valley probably 7 at night, and by the time I got down to one channel, at 2:30 in the morning, and had sort of picked up a bit of Wi-Fi here and there and watched the highlights. There was probably a good 200 or 300 people that were sort of following me around, looking at the highlights. But I think the overall consensus from what I got from those guys was that they were just happy to see Cam Sutcliffe out of the team.
Yeah, they hate him in Hong Kong.
Yeah, which was a a bit surprising that they knew who he was, but
Well, he's an accountant, you see, so...
but apparently he's not very good. He kept scanning his debit and credits stuff and all that sort of shit.
Doesn't carry the one.
Yeah, so the overall consensus was that it was just good to get sort of those guys that they're just a bit of energy thieves, really. Like your Dawson and your Sutcliffe and your 2 more years. And I think what we all saw is that the rest of the team sort of views them as energy thieves as well, because they just got a bit up and about, didn't they?
I think you make a good point, because if you think about playing those guys, they're known quantities. So you're playing Dawson, you know what you're going to get from him. You know what you're going to get from Pearce. You know what you're going to get from Sutcliffe. Whereas we play these kids, like Logue might not have had 30 touches and kicked 10, but you don't know what you're going to get from him, so he could produce, whereas very rarely you're going to get those other guys producing, so you're almost you're hamstringing yourself by playing him.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think, like, in the first 2 rounds, just seeing, like, their mistakes were just so critical, and even, like, say, someone like an Ethan Hughes and Logue to another extent didn't really do a whole heap, but what they did do was good, and it just allowed the team to build from their sort of stuff, whereas first couple of rounds, like, and really robbing the team of momentum. So I think just like getting those guys in just really helped us get momentum and be able to sort of build on that momentum and get to space and sort of other guys to be positive and run to that space.
Yep, and I think those younger guys, like particularly Crozier and those sort of guys that came in for the Pearces and the Sutcliffes, Ballack, their energy and their willingness to just have a crack and like sprint and run to space or put pressure on, you can see in their early stage of their career so much higher than the Pearces and stuff who were just sort of like, nah, man, I'm not going to do that. I don't know. They have something. Crozier had something to prove, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think also the same can probably be said for Brady Gray. Like there's another podcast provider that I use, and they have historically been pretty big knockers on Brady Gray's skills, and I was really impressed. I thought his effort and his intensity was right up, because he's a bit of a beefcake as well.
Yeah, he's thick.
But his skills are really good. He used the ball like super efficiently whenever he got it.
Well,
I think
I seem to remember one bit of play where he, 2 or 3 efforts, he ended up with the ball in the pocket and he squared it up to Kirsten, and I think that was the goal to put us like 2 points down or something. So
in the goal square.
Yeah, so he's obviously handy under pressure. I don't know. There's some other junk podcasts out and about the Dockers at the moment, so I don't tend to listen to too many other ones.
Does Michael Barlow still do a podcast about the Dockers?
No, I think ever since he went over to the Gold Coast, he's bailed. Too busy getting a tan, mate. How about, what do you think about the Hill combo? I know you're a big fan of Stephen Hill at the moment, and I'm a big fan of Brad Hill. Can we combine those?
Yeah, look, I think it's great. I think trade period, I was kind of like, I'm not sure about this Brad Hill business. I thought he was potentially a bit of a front runner at Hawthorn, but I guess I reckon Hawthorn will probably be like, fuck, I wish we had Brad Hill back, because if you look at them they've lost a lot of pace and a lot of that sort of outside run, and it's like he's just brought that to the Dockers, and it's having both those guys, especially when the rest of the team's like playing with that mindset of like, let's get it moving, let's get running. They're just such big assets to have.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I was with you when we got Brad Hill. I was thinking, okay, I can understand Cam McCarthy need him, Kirsten happy we've got another tall forward, and Hamling we need another tall back. Brad Hill was sort of my meh. Like, I was happy to have him, but wouldn't have. He's definitely been the best performer so far and the most useful for us until the weekend when Hamling showed how good he can be, and McCarthy and Kirsten are still sort of potential players at the moment. But yeah, so I completely agree. And thank you very much, Noobs. That was awesome. Cheers, mate. Just quickly, should we go over to a few of our segments? So give the listeners a little update on our fantasy. I'm sure they've been hanging out to figure out who won the fantasy this week.
Yeah, we'll go through the fantasy. Probably the most disappointing thing for me was that I picked Dawson, and I picked Dawson on the back of saying that we would get flogged. So it sucked into me picking Dawson and being such a negative supporter. So
I didn't even go to the game to watch him.
Didn't even go to the game to watch it. Watched it on a 4-inch iPhone screen. But you take it away with the scores.
All right, so our teams, just to refresh everyone's memories. So you had Dawson, Mason Cox, and Brett Heady from Port Adelaide.
I like Brett Heady.
Yeah, he's good. I don't mind him he looks like he's going to be an interesting dude to watch play. And I had Daniel Talia, Taylor Hunt, and Sam Rowe. Now, interestingly, out of 6 players, only 3 of them actually played. So, so the final scores and the scoring, as we'll quickly refresh, is 100 minus their score. Is the points you're awarded. So you're wanting the lowest score possible. Brett Heady got 35, so that's a pretty good score, but none of your other players actually played. So you ended up with a score of 65. I had 2 of my boys play, Talia and Rowe, with Taylor Hunt being dropped. So I ended up with 93. So the chocolates go to Juddy on the first round of reverse fantasy. However, we will redraft and draft a few more players this week. So talk us through who you have drafted to add in after you've dropped Zach Dawson, because he probably won't ever play AFL again.
All right. Yeah, that might be it for Paul Dawson. He's definitely out of my team. He might be out of the Dockers team. But coming in for me this week, I got big Alex Rance from Richmond. Shout out to Pete. I'm bringing in Est Lemons from Gold Coast. Tony Lemons coming in from the Gold Coast.
Yeah, good.
Shout out to Henry. And then Nick Smith from Sydney. You're also letting me take a 4th so that we can bring our squad up to 5.
Yeah.
And we take 3. And so my last pick is Mr. Gleeson.
No drama. So you'll drop Cox and Dawes. All right, I'll add to my team. So I'm actually going to keep Taylor Hunt because I reckon he'll keep playing at a poor state, and Richmond will bring him back in. But I'm going to add in old faithful Phil Davis because he doesn't do 2/5 of F all, and Nathan Brown, who at Collingwood he was, a Presta Giacomo type, and at St Kilda he's going to be the same. So I'm just all backman, I think.
Yeah, through spuds.
Yeah, so that's good. All right, so that'll be fun. So we'll go the best 3 out of our 5 in case we've got a few. You need to pick that absolute bullseye for being a spud, the spud that gets picked every week.
Well, let's take it to probably our most popular segment, medical questions. And this week we had a caller in.
Yeah.
We're not going to edit that in, but we're going to jump right into a medical question.
Yeah, we did. We did have someone, a friend of mine that actually is a doctor, and he took the medical part a little bit too literally, but then he revised his question. So his question was, if you have intercourse of a sexual nature with a overweight or obese female, is it possible to catch or contract diabetes? So I've actually consulted the literature with this. I've never had any experience with this myself. I probably have, whatever.
Never rooted diabetic?
Never rooted ducky. But I believe that as long as you use the withdrawal technique, you don't catch diabetes. It's only if you leave it in to do the business.
So it can be, because I consulted old man Greg at Go, and Greg's understanding was, and Greg based most of what he knew on his missus, who turns out is a doctor, and his brother has type 2 diabetes because he eats lots of sugar. He told me that it was all good, and he was pretty excited, thinking that maybe I was getting lucky, but I had to tell him that it was just a general question, which then he found a bit weird. But he seemed to think that it was all clear, that go for gold. He said he couldn't. He's probably going to consult his missus later.
Yeah. So tongue in cheek, being an endocrine disorder, no, you cannot catch it from jizz. Type 2 diabetes is nothing to do with sex. So, but it's probably not ideal to jizz inside someone anyway. So maybe that's just good advice for life for guys.
Yeah, Dork Talk definitely endorses dingers.
Well, there's situations, isn't there? There's horses for courses.
I wouldn't trust myself pulling out of the car park, Juddy.
Yeah, well, there's plenty we could go into with that, but we'd need a rating on this. I don't think YouTube would let us record it anymore.
Let's move into our final segment. We're going to the Jared Roughhead Club. We're looking at our bets. We'll take a recap of last week. I tipped Carlton.
Yeah, you did it. $5.10.
Yeah, that came in very handy.
Yes, it did. I had the Roos over GWS at $5.25, who showed a little bit of promise, but then GWS way too good, and Roos really inaccurate again. So I think, or GWS were really inaccurate. One of them were.
One I will say about the Carlton game was shout out to Melbourne Weather. I think they really got me across the line.
Well, if you had a look at both games, so Melbourne Weather was terrible on the weekend, but the St Kilda played in Etihad, and so did someone else on the Sunday, and those games were both, pristine, obviously. And then Carlton Essendon and Eagles Richmond are both in the bloody cyclone, and it really affected those games. So yeah, definitely, that's a good thing to look out for. For Carlton, seem like they're a scrapper, and Essendon aren't that good, like you called. So.
Big time.
Good hindsight bet there.
Yeah.
All right, this week, who are you going to go, mate?
I'm looking at last year's grand final of Sydney against West Coast at home. They're paying $2.90, which I think is good odds for a good team that are 0-3. And I just think, like teams did this week, that answered a lot of questions, like Collingwood and Gold Coast.
Rio, yep.
Eventually Sydney are going to have to get up, and they're going to have to get it together. Also, Hawks paying $2.65 against Geelong. That old rivalry. I think that hopefully that's a good game. I don't think Hawthorn are as bad as what they're playing at the moment. And same again, eventually they've got to win one. And paying $2.65, I don't think they're too bad.
Yeah, I think the way the AFL's going at the moment, this week was a great example that the odds really aren't reflective of the chances in the game. They're just what popular opinion is. So, tipping this week, I think I got 3 right. I just picked the wrong roughies, basically. But I think a lot of tipping comps will be on some pretty low averages at the moment. So I'm going to go as a loyal supporter. I really was looking at the Port game, 355 to beat GWS. I still don't trust GWS, and I think Port are better than they showed. However, I'm going to go. I think Freo have caught Melbourne at the absolute opportune time with Gawn, Hogan smoking darts down south, Lewis still suspended, and now they've probably lost Bernie Vince with Gribbletoe. I think Freo at $3.18, $5 bet. I'm loving that. So, as long as Freo don't listen to this podcast and listen to how good they are, I reckon we're a chance. But WA media are probably all over the back page how good the Dockers are at the moment or whatever. So let's be honest, we might get flogged, but we've caught Melbourne at a good time. So I think that's good odds for that situation.
Yeah, go over there with nothing to lose. Old Benson Hogan Smooths out for another week.
Yeah, very good. All right, should we have a little chat about that game this week? So Melbourne Demons on Saturday, I believe, at the G. So what do we honestly think here? So what chance are we? Saturday Arvo, the early game.
I got to watch a bit of Melbourne against Geelong. I think Melbourne have come a long way. If they get it together and play play some of their good football, it's going to be a tough game. But I think we can match it with them. If we go over there, there's going to be, hopefully, it depends on what team they name. But if they name another young team, I think the exciting thing is that they're just going to be, playing at the MCG, playing away. They've had that taste of victory, seen that. They might get excited going.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I honestly, in terms of team selection, would see maybe one change, and it might be that Tucker or someone comes in. I dare say if we held the faith in that loss to Geelong, then Lyon will obviously hold the faith with that team. So I think we should go in with a similar team. Melbourne are a good side. Melbourne nearly took it to Geelong with all those guys still out. So I think we're going to have to play like we did on the weekend with that intensity to sort of... If we bring that game, then I think we can beat a lot of teams. So it's what Dockers rock up rather than anything else. So I don't know. We're a decent chance if we put in that sort of effort. I think it's effort based from our aspect rather than what Melbourne will throw. We know Melbourne will be relatively consistent this year.
Yeah. The exciting thing is that we're both excited to watch the game on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, how good is we've got Good Friday footy finally?
Yeah. Excellent.
Like,
Still can't buy a beer at the pub, but can watch the footy.
yeah, but I might go play 2-up somewhere, mate. I'm in a country town in central Queensland. I bloody can't gamble anywhere except on my phone, which I have been a lot. So that game at North Melbourne Dogs would be not a bad game, I think. Better than the ladder suggests. But yeah, we play that early Saturday game. I reckon we probably Skype in and watch that together.
Possibly.
Maybe even record a little segment while we're doing it. All right, very good. Any final comments from you?
No, I was just going to comment and say that you've got a great voice to I reckon you've probably found your calling in that.
In podcasts?
No, in tour.
In 2-up, just yelling as loud as I can.
Pretty much.
Go! Heads! Oh, I'm a tails man anyway.
Pretty ratsy game. Love it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's look forward to next podcast and hopefully we're as jovial as we are right now.
Yeah, thanks for listening. See you later.
See you later.